Good evening. My goodness, I'm so sorry. YouTube has once again changed its back-end design and made it incredibly difficult to actually access the dashboard to do live stuff. I have no idea why. It's very frustrating, and most of you don't care, but we are here. We're 4 minutes late. I am so sorry. Everything just doesn't seem to be working. It was very bizarre, but we're here now. It's episode 222, a high-speed rail network for the UK and Ireland. But first, we of course have to shout out the Class 222 Meridian, basically a slightly better Voyager. I always quite like these. I don't know why. They always felt nicer inside than the Voyagers. And they had slightly bizarre originally they were 9 and 4 car, and then they changed them to be 5 and 7 car, which makes some more sense. Although I would suggest that they should have all just been 9 car to start with. But there we go. Yeah. Here we go. There's the 222. So they've had their destiny seems to be a bit of a strange one at the moment, but more on that on another time. It's a unique thrill. You've been waiting for a while, and there's nothing else quite like it. You know what I'm talking about. It's maps of potential high-speed rail. Welcome to tonight's Rail Matter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, what of the news? Well, there's a little bit of news. The news is okay. This is I said we got nothing because the King's speech had very little about railways in it, other than the big headline hitting GBR creation. But we kind of knew that was coming, and I have to say that was the bare minimum as I saw it, and nothing else appears to have happened as a result of that. The key thing is the frustrating language here of, we are not reversing the decision to cancel the second phase of HS2. Do not be under any illusions that this is some clever 4D chess. Labour are in. They no longer have to do 4D chess. What this is just them having had all of the consent manufacturing going on thanks to the Tories before the general election. Now they don't have to deliver it. The Tories have done all the hard political work of cancelling it. Now they can just do that. They can just continue that choice. Very frustrating. So, what they're going to do is continue to do exactly what the Tories were doing about HS2. So, really pretty inspirational. Really good inspirational stuff there. So that is, of course, high-speed rail, high-speed 2. It's been long enough now that people are like, well, what's this all about? What's the point of it all? And I thought we'd take the opportunity, I'm going to briefly do Big Face in a second, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to just very briefly at the start, well, maybe not that briefly, but spend 10, 15 minutes reminding ourselves what the point of HS2 was, where it failed. You'll remember we have had previous episodes where we've talked about where HS2 could have been better. We'll incorporate some of that into what we're going to do today. Today's going to be fun mostly, though. This is an episode of pudding. And Detour in the YouTube chat has just now said some very good things that will absolutely become pertinent later about map projections and geomatics and ensuring that you're using the there are two commonly used projections in Ireland. I can't remember the official name for either of them, but there's one that's kind of the equivalent of OSGB 36, which is the UK Ordnance Survey projection. And there's another one that's like a slightly different, that's also slightly different, and sometimes you get data in both. Having been playing with data for both recently for some railway work in and around the Wicklow area, spoiler alert, a thing to be pertinent, and that will explain why there's a bit of a gap in the background data of the mapping that I'll be showing you momentarily. Also, Detour off of the YouTube chat, hi Deirdre, has been talking about travel to work areas and other built-up area designations. Yes, we might talk about those because we'll be using those a bit on the map as well. WSG 84 is the international sort of geoid, and it's not very useful for little countries. It's not very accurate at all, in fact. OSGB 36 is also pretty useless for the accuracy for railway projects. You need accuracy of a snake grid, really, rather than OSGB 36, which is good for a generic countrywide projection, and for anything that's accurate down to about 100 millimeters, but less than 100 millimeters, you need a bit more accuracy. Will this be fun, though? It's more of a here's what you could have won moment, but crayons are fun. I think we'd be going beyond that. Owen O'Neill reckons we should be pushing for a revised business case for Phase 1. Unrealised benefits from Phase 1 have got to be the same order of magnitude as building 2A. The common one in Ireland is Irene T95. Oh, that's very nice. Braehead Base Tunnel confirmed, according to Lachlan Gallagher. Yeah, quite right. Okay, let's get cracking. So, first of all, big face. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. There's lots of good chat. I'm sorry I was late. By the way, people, what are you drinking all? Because this is a social event and we should all enjoy it. I am drinking. This is the old mug from the old provider, not the new mugs. They last better than this. You can see it's starting to get chipped on the corner. This is the original. Is this mug a gadget ban? You can see it's faring a bit worse for wear. It's been through the wars a bit, this one. But I'm drinking a nice Sainsbury's instant coffee. Very nice. Strong but also milky. It's a good way to give yourself a headache. So let's get cracking, shall we? IronNet, I know, but I like Irene T95 somehow. I thought that's more entertaining. Anne Person has PG tips. Rob Brew's just finished a decaf coffee. Nucker is in Venice. That's exciting. Taking the train to Munich. Aus München. Very nice. Right, let me get... In fact, no, I'm not going to read my face. I'm going to miniaturize my face, and we're going to talk about some things. So, why do we want high-speed railways? Well, the answer is capacity. This is why we want high-speed railways. So fundamentally, we need our railways. We're talking about the Britain picture, but actually we will be talking... This is UK and Ireland, so we are talking about UK and Ireland at this point. The Irish story is a little bit different, but it's the same, really. The Irish story is a slightly different, much less dense network, but actually we'll get to the picture. Actually, we'll see on the corridor that we're going to be talking about that the story is actually not dissimilar. Capacity is key, and there are different ways to deliver capacity. Oh yeah, of course. We know that ridership is back up. This is always a necessary thing for me to have to shout about. Rail ridership continues to, we're this is the average, the rolling average over a month. So we're very much back towards where we were with ridership, and that needs to climb dramatically. Remember we went through the TUC report. The TUC laid out all of the increases from a 2019 baseline required to meet the UK's kind of fairly unambitious climate targets, to be honest. And we know that the reason why, look at my face on top of the word shares, the reason why transport's emissions are so bad is because modal share is so high for road, 89% in fact. Rail is only 10% of people and things. And the result of that is that you could completely decarbonise the railways, so electrify the railways, and you'd save 4 million tonnes of CO2, whereas if you get a 10% shift towards rail, you'd save 10 million tonnes of CO2. Of course, depressingly, those are nothing compared to the total, or rather, those pale to the total UK GHG emissions. So there are other things going on here, like in some cases that's a reduction of use overall of transport. In other cases, it is electric vehicles on the road. Ideally, though, we should be we should be aiming for a really ambitious view of how rail ties into that, because a lot of those emissions are journeys that rail could pick up, longer distance journeys, particularly HGV journeys as well. So, and the whole time that I've been alive, transport emissions in the UK have flatlined, and I dare say the story is the same in Ireland as well. So for GB, so just picking up the GB picture, rail needs to double its passenger and freight capacity by 2040 at the latest. There's no chance we're going to achieve this, but goddamn, we need to. There's a lot of work we need to do. Oh, look, I'm very dark and dingy there. That's better. There's a lot of work we need to do to achieve that, but that is the stretch target. That's really what we need to be achieving. How, though? Well, a few things. Remodelling, resignaling can achieve some amount of success in some locations. Electrification of power supply upgrades, absolutely. There are cases where we're running diesel trains on the East Coast Main Line under the wires that run entirely under the wires because we don't have the power supply to put the juice into the trains. Likewise, electrification helps smooth the performance differences between different stopping patterns and different kind of vehicle types, allows them to run more closely together. Also, it gets your freight trains over hills much more easily. The difference in performance of the fact that a lot of the freight operators are falling back onto trying to use 66s over Shap and over BTIC is walloping the West Coast Main Line, because electric trains are substantially more powerful. So those are things you can do. You need new trains. It's all very well me talking about new infrastructure, but if you're going to run more services, you need a lot of new trains, and the capacity for the UK generally, including this UK, Northern Ireland, and also Ireland, the capacity for Ireland to deliver new trains is limited. It's constrained, heavily constrained, and this is a challenge as well. But we need new lines as well. Fundamentally, we need new railway lines. So much that, and this doesn't just mean brand new high-speed lines. This also refers to new suburban and urban lines. And also, as we will not be covering in this episode, we will need some mixed traffic new lines as well, sort of Swiss, Austro-Swiss style, sort of Alpine style mixed traffic new lines that are built for a lower speed, but designed around mixed traffic. So, for example, the Dragon Line in Wales is an example of where you some new railway, some use of existing railway, to create a single route. That route would be a kind of an Austrian or a Swiss style mixed traffic, but high density mixed traffic route. There are other routes that should operate like that. The Borders Railway would be a good example. I think East West Rail is an example of one that is actually happening now that is being built along those lines, but we need quite a few more of these around the country. I would argue that there are other bits that require upgrades like this. In some cases, that might be where there is an existing main line. In some cases, it might be paralleling or indeed doing a different route to an existing route. But we'll maybe talk about this in another episode. But people are asking about the Dragon Line. Yeah, the Dragon Line is the North-South Welsh main line. Everyone remember the Dragon Line? That was a good episode, wasn't it? Or a good couple of episodes. Maybe a follow-up needed on that to kick me up the backside to create those new graphics that I was supposed to. Anyway, new lines. And HS2 was one of those new lines. It was not the whole picture, but it was one of them. And this is kind of how it worked. So here's Britain's railways, and here is Wales and, or not almost all of Wales and a good chunk of England's railways, with the night sky overlain to kind of make a point about density. On here we have several major railway centres, London, Birmingham, Nottingham, Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds. And then you've got a lot of these, what you might call the secondary centres of, Crewe, Bradford, York, Donny, Derby, Leicester, Coventry, Northampton, Peterborough, Milton Keynes, Stevenage, kind of the sort of secondary big lumps. And you've got the existing rail network kind of looking like this, and this is broadly the north-south rail network coming out of London, heading towards Scotland and the northeast. And it's kind of a bit of a mess. It's very bifurcated. In some cases, it doesn't serve anything. In other cases, it serves quite a few chunks. It's a bit of a scrappy mess. So, HS2 relieved all of that mess. It relieved all of it in its original guise, imperfectly, as we've discussed, but it did do that job. It did that job. However, Stoke, RIP Stoke not being on this map. Yes, I'm not. It's not. I could have gone. Okay, I'll do this very accurately, but no. So this is HS2, and you had a connection of several of those major stops. And then some additional hub stations to facilitate other connections. And then the logic was that you would create a Transpennine high-speed rail link across from Liverpool up via Bradford to Leeds and to York. This gave you the current what was broadly proposed as this is the zenith of what was being actually put on the table as a proposal for high-speed rail. Now, for a variety of reasons, as we'll talk about, this is not enough. This is not a complete picture, but it is something that was broadly bought into politically at this point. Treasury had even sort of got on board with it until the Tories started deciding no. So we had HS2 Phase 1, which is in the process of being built now and is largely complete at this point. We had Phase 2A, which was up to Crewe, which is the bit that everyone's shouting about at the moment because that has been shit-canned. Phase 2B West was to Manchester and also its little funny Goulburn link, in again, out again, hokey-cokey to link up to the West Coast Main Line. And And then phase 2B East was the connection from Birmingham up through the East Midlands hub to Leeds, with a funny little thing to allow trains to run to Sheffield, but it was an imperfect solution there. Once again, we were maintaining this issue of like running lines not through city centres because it's cheaper, but is it better? No, I don't think so. So that was HS2. Then now some problems happened. Remember these pricks? Well, one of them anyway. The other one's not a very good person either, but has a reasonably harmless. I had mixed feelings on both of them. Let's just put it that way. Now, let's talk about HS2 again because oh no, it's gone, replaced by the Plan for Drivers and Network North. At which point, it's gone, and then the trains are running now from what was London. Well, it's not London anymore. Old Oak Common through to Birmingham Interchange in Birmingham, and that's it. And it's a shuttle that achieves very little. And actually, so what we've actually got in terms of relief, we are just about relieving Milton Keynes, Northampton and Coventry, and that's it. And actually, by the fact that Euston is not being exploited, actually we're arguably not even relieving those, because many people might just want to get the existing services out of central London. Shambles. So, sod this for a game of peanuts. Let's do better. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So, here is... In fact, you know what, let's briefly do a big face and go through the chat. So, what are people saying? So... West Yorkshire posted some proposed tram routes for public consultation. Have you had a chance to see them? Hold that thought. Of course I have. Right, so... Okay, good, marvellous. There's not too many questions coming through. First ever Valkyrie VP's first ever live rail matter hype. Oh, it's always nice that we always end up with a new person. Always shout out if you've joined for the first time. Also, shout out to the Patreon supporter who bumped into me in York today and said hello. Always say hello. I don't mind. It's always fun. I might just go kind of babble a bit, be like, ooh, but generally I'll be smiling. And I'm always delighted to see those of you out there, fans of the show. It's always nice to see you. Anyway. Currently watching this, waiting for the map like the GIF of England fans in that massive pub. Yeah, here we go. Bait 64, first ever rail matter live for me too. Look at this. Also my first time, Chris Gledhill. First time listening to me on Podcasting is Practice recently. Hello Chris, a pleasure. Are we going to explore what should have been the Eastern Lake? Everyone, I'm so excited to spring this on. It's so much fun. Oh, it's Harry Harrison. That was me. Thanks for being so gracious. I wasn't gracious. I was waffling about, but it was an absolute joy to say hello. Always a pleasure. Not watching live for the first time, but watching live for the first time in about a year. Hello, Harry Tanzer. Anyway, right. It's always nice to say hello to all of you. It's a joy and a delight to have everyone here. I know there has only been one live show. I promise you there will be another one because I had so much fun. We will have another one. I'll pick a venue and it'll make it happen. We'll do some votes on which venue you think of. I'd love to do Cardiff actually, but we'll see. It might be another York one to make sure it happens sooner rather than later. Anyway, let's miniaturize my face into the corner. I'm gone. I'm up in the corner here. Shout out to Bentley, by the way, and I'll give them a shout out at the end as well, because they gave me a license to a non-commercial license to do this sort of thing for rail natters, which has made my life a lot easier because I can do now. It means I can have Bentley on. I can have MicroStation on my rail natter machine and show you all mapping. So what do we have here? Here is the big island, and here is Ireland. Beautiful, lovely Ireland next to it, and this comes to Detour's point about mapping projections. I do not have underlying rail line mapping that is compatible to have both at the same time, unfortunately. So Ireland, you're off the case, but I will, however, be putting something on that island, on that island of Ireland soon. For starters, though, let's have a quick look at what we've got on the map. So, I don't know why I went straight to Dundee. There's Dundee. Hi, Dundee. No, we're not talking about Dundee. The things that you can see in the background are statistical built-up areas of larger than 100k. So you can see there's a kind of a fair scattering of them around. In fact, what we could do is just briefly turn off the rail network, actually. So you've got, there's Britain. And yes, there is HS1 going down. So that exists now, so that's fine. So we have all these kind of scattered lumps. And obviously there's a lot in England. And there is a lot in particularly northwest England, and then there's people. It's funny, people think of Leeds and West Yorkshire as being like sort of on the east coast, but actually it's pretty much slap bang in the centre of the landmass. It's always weird to see it in the map like that. It's always funny that the West Yorkshire conurbation is kind of actually a pretty central lump there. Anyway, so there's all that. Underneath we have, if I switch on the layers, we have got the existing rail network. You can see, and what I've done is you can see the thick lines here are broadly, if imperfectly, the mainline railway network kind of shown as well. So in our rail network, we have got these major main lines that don't argue over that. That's me kind of just selecting some of the route, broadly the routes that make it. It's for illustrative purposes rather than any form of perfection. You can see there that's kind of that's the route we have. You know, arguably I'd put the Transpennine, the Huddersfield line as a thick one as well, but anyway, I haven't for now. Anyway, so that's the rail network. Now, I'm trying to work out the best way to be dramatic about this, but I think what I'm basically going to do is go in here and switch this on, and also this on, and also this on. So there's some other stuff that I'll switch on in a minute, but this is the network, right? So down here we have got HS2 as being built now, going into Curzon Street, as proposed, right? So that's happening, that's being built, pretty much incontrovertible. But everything else is kind of on the table other than that. So in terms of, I don't know what order you want, everyone's in sickos _ yes.tiff. Yeah, exactly. I don't really know where you want to start, but where do you want to, shall I talk through in a broadly in the sequence of going northwards, shall I? Or shall I talk maybe in the sequence of what order they might get built? So this is being built now. This is HS2 phase 1 being built now. The next bit that probably ought to be built is what is basically it's a mixture of phase 2A and what I think should be the route from north from Crewe, which is sorry, my Zoom just decided to crash, which is always nice when it does that, which is, rather than you know what, we will put the original. In fact, we can possibly put it on now. Should we put the actual HS2 route on? Because that might be useful. Western leg. Is it going to show? Oh, why is it not showing? That's a bit weird. Yeah. Oh, I know why. It's because it's in here. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to switch all this off. No, all off. And then switch on. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Western leg. So you can see if I switch on and off the western leg, you can see that rather than doing the thing that HS2 was doing, as I've moaned about before, is rather than cutting directly between, serving nowhere and cutting between and through between Manchester and Liverpool, I propose that actually you take the opportunity to just barrel the main route through the centre of Manchester. It means that you it then builds the case for needing to do the work north of Manchester to bring journey times to Glasgow right and to Scotland right down. But I strongly believe that is a better solution in terms of maximising the use of the infrastructure, sweating the asset that we build, and also making use of the fact that it will result in more urban tunnelling, which reduces the amount of at the surface countryside demolition, which I see as a good thing as well. I don't think there's much difference to phase 2A. I don't think I'm proposing much difference to 2A here. Yeah, if I just switch on 2A, yeah, there's not much difference. I think I'm pretty much proposing exactly the same as HS2 has. But I propose north of 2A, so north of Crewe is where I divert. Also including around here, chuck questions, by the way. So here we go. So many questions coming through. Do at me when you have questions. Why keep going via Crewe versus Stoke? Because Crewe allows you to think about serving. It does a better job of allowing you to serve. It's a reasonable query. I think it does a better job of serving the regional rail network, particularly in terms of Wales. So for me, Crewe is about that Welsh rail connectivity. It's a reasonable challenge. And for example, immediate caveat is, everyone, if you have things that you think make more sense, like for example, why it should go via Stoke rather than Crewe, do list them off, because I will consider them. Like, this is not a finished map. This is what I've, up to this point in history now, is what I view as the best picture. But you're all an intelligent lot, and you might suggest things that can challenge. You might have challenges on big picture things like Crewe versus Stoke, or when we zoom in a bit and maybe have a look at alignments, you might have challenges on the specifics of what routes the railway picks. Again, don't get too het up on specifics of alignment, because some of these are better worked up than others that I've drawn up. But they're and I'll show you in a minute what the actual alignments look like. I'm showing you a single alignment for this map, but actually, as I'll show you towards the end of the episode, this is a representation of what are actually lots of different braiding alignments and options that kind of achieve similar outcomes. Those similar outcomes, by the way, being relieving the existing rail network. That's what this aims to do. It's to basically take every single long distance train off the existing railway network, other than in locations where that can be achieved without constraining long-term capacity. So you need a new line to Liverpool, basically as per the TfN proposals, and the Steve Rotherham and Andy Burnham proposals, including a station at Bank Quay, kind of a low-level or potentially a high-level station, who knows? But you build that up there with a new route, by the way, not using an existing railway. So that route then tunneled into a new station. I've got the new station here at Lime Street, but I know Steve Rotherham's talking about expanding Central. So actually, you could, I've no het up on that. If the local decision would be actually we want Central to be the expanded station location for the new connection, then that dot just needs moving. That's fine. So that's what you do at Liverpool. You have a connection that goes. So this allows you have this sort of alignment. This is allowing you to kind of barrel through, and it allows you a connection down to, so you get your Liverpool to London connectivity, but also you get your Liverpool to Manchester to Leeds connectivity, and also, as we'll see in a minute, your Liverpool to Manchester Airport to Manchester to Sheffield connectivity, because there is a critical, this is where the reopen Woodhead people might start getting cheerful. There is a critical component in the high speed network that I include that you might challenge. You're like, well, this feels like a lot of duplication there, but there isn't. There's a logic to what I'll show you in a moment. So where do you want to go next? Where are we at? So people are saying order built. So right, okay. So we've gone up to Manchester. We've got the Liverpool connection. Let's talk about the Pennines for now. So let's talk about. No, you know what? Let's go back down to Birmingham and work our way up. So from Birmingham, you go for HS2 Phase 2B's eastern leg, but you might spot a few differences. So the eastern leg here, I've got it in white dashed, but my version is going back for the go underneath the airport alignment to improve the speeds. And then you cut up through, and we can have the discussion about. So this is the hub. I strongly believe that the Midland hub is the best solution, rather than Parkway. But again, Parkway means the challenge for me is that hub best suits. So there's a compromise here, because the East Midlands is pretty disparate. Leicester is a very large centre, as is Nottingham and Derby. If you attempt to serve all three of those, you serve none of them, whereas you can successfully serve Derby and Nottingham with a single hub station, so long as you then build a hub and spoke. And we will dedicate an episode to what that hub and spoke might look like at East Midlands Hub. As long as you dedicate a hub and spoke to those two cities and the wider urban area. How Leicester gets served is more challenging, and how that looks. I would propose that you go for like a fast regional shuttle type arrangement on the Midland Main Line, and because that you could facilitate that without sacrificing suburban or freight capacity on that route. So that's how I would propose to deal with that. But those are my thoughts. Warrington could also be a reasonable compromise link with North Wales, says Gareth. I know there's lots of chat going on. Bulldoze East Midlands Airport, now go underneath. But also East Midlands Airport doesn't need to exist. Like, you can just get rid of it, that's fine. I know it gets used a lot for logistics, but it shouldn't. So there we go. Long term. Don't go between Liverpool and Manchester, but do go between Derby and Nottingham. Yes, Howard Meow, because I'm not building a station between Liverpool and Manchester. I am building a station between Derby and Nottingham, because if you pick one over the other, it doesn't make sense in the context of the way that the population spread is. That's why this was proposed by HS2, and I strongly believe and agree with that proposal. Also, there's nowhere that you can put there is space to put, and you may as well use it, a centrally located station in at Towton. So that is my proposal for these bins, is to continue that, but stuff this branch line nonsense to Chesterfield, and also stuff some of the proposed final route to up to of what HS2 is proposing around Manchester, because I strongly believe that the Meadowhall station solution is the right solution for Sheffield, chiefly because I want the high-speed network to be north and south-facing, not just south-facing for Sheffield. The challenge with its stupid proposals of going into Sheffield Midland was that you just had a south-facing network, whereas if because the trains will only go south, they won't, you will not get the network going north. Whereas strongly, I feel that you have a station at Sheffield at Meadowhall, which kind of serves the Sheffield area, but also if you then, for example, built, and there's an article coming out about this soon, if you then built a suburban network for Sheffield, you could centre that, providing very high capacities through to Meadowhall interchange, Meadowhall from Sheffield Midland and from elsewhere, and that would kind of solve your problems. So more on that in another episode, by the way, for the future, my friends. However, that is how I see being the best way to serve South Yorkshire, including Donny as well. So I just see that as a better fit. So we've reached Sheffield, and then you've got this triangle over the Pennines. And why is the triangle important? For me, it comes back to that question, north and south facing, is that for the East Midlands Parkway, if you've got the network reaching a terminus in Newcastle, so you're not using, so the East Coast Main Line, the Wibbly East Coast Main Line doesn't become the main north-south connection from Edinburgh. Edinburgh gets its own connection later, we'll talk about. It means that if you're in the East Midlands, you have to go south before you can go north, which is rubbish. You can solve that problem by, in the case of Leeds, then you can go across the Pennines and north, fine. In the case of the East Midlands Hub and the East Midlands and Sheffield, then there is a benefit on a variety of levels to having a direct connection to Manchester. Also, there should be a direct high-speed connection between Manchester and Sheffield. Sheffield is an enormous city. It's the best part of 2 million people in the wider built-up area. That's a sizable city, and it merits a direct connection to Manchester beyond what the Hope Valley can provide in the long term. So I absolutely believe that you build that link, and that route will do some going close to the alignment soon. But suffice to say, this does broadly find its way in the vicinity of Woodhead tunnels. What it actually ends up looking like in terms of what is tunnelled and what isn't tunnelled, and indeed you might end up with a longer straight line there because you might end up with a large base tunnel, kind of would require more detailed modelling. But the opportunity to have a decent alignment is there. Then let's talk about Manchester, because Manchester has the highest density of different lines darting around here, and I would suggest that some of these would be tunnelled, and some of them you might attempt to make a better use of on surface space. Rochdale cries about not being on NPR. Go on, move that line another 2 kilometres north. So, So the reason you'll see when we talk about the service pattern, that the reason why you have all this here in Manchester is to facilitate journeys from Liverpool through to Sheffield and indeed to the East Midlands. So if you're going from Liverpool to the East Midlands and Nottingham, no longer do you faff around on the existing network, you get a high-speed train that takes you up through. And the good thing is that high-speed train also can carry, you get a decent frequency then of going to Manchester Airport as a connective, as a major, what will end up being a major transport hub. Like, yes, it's at the airport, but actually that'll service a substantial amount of population in the southern end of, like Sale and the southern end of Manchester. You end up with this big old kinkaroo to get you facing the right direction, going to and from Leeds. Also, there'll be a station up in the north of Manchester, kind of up this end, which provides you with a major connection to up to kind of the. So Rochdale is getting a connection here. Who was just moaning about? Owen, Rochdale's happy. You've got it. It's there. It's getting its connection. It just isn't very central. You could argue that you could push the thing further. You might say push the thing further. There's another one to add to the list, Owen, is to push the alignment further north to go through central Rochdale. I don't think that's necessarily a crazy idea, actually. But on the various alignments that I've developed, this ends up being hit. Although what's funny is that that's actually sat on a different centre line to the one that I've chosen. But anyway, don't worry about that. So what bit are we going to talk about next? We've talked a bit about that. Let's talk about going across the Pennines, shall we? So, also the reason you have the chord is also because it means you get Liverpool to Scotland, which is a key connection oft forgotten. What else? So coming through the airport development area, broadly doing what HS2 was doing, having a station. I tell you what, let's switch this off and look at where. Let's also switch the stations off for now. Let's just go in here and switch the stations off. So in terms of where this actually sits, it sits. So you end up with a connection into the close to the sort of, bearing in mind these are centre lines, so the exact positioning of tracks is going to be different. But you end up with a station that meets Piccadilly, kind of underneath. In fact, it sort of sits. The station complex would sit a little bit further south than it's showing here by where all the tracks would be, and what's a tight curve versus what's a sharp curve. So it ends up sitting more underneath Piccadilly. The alignment that you have here, and actually, as you'll see with what I put on the map, the different alignments that you get mean that you can have different orientations depending on what the best overall engineering solution is. So I'm not like wedded to the exact dial direction on the clock of what that is. What I am set on is what is the prevailing through and non-through directions. So in this instance, actually, you might end up with that being straight and this coming in. But in terms of what requires and does not require a reversal, if you see what I mean. Anyway, so Katie's talking very good sense about the South Yorkshire metro system. Yeah, there's an episode on that coming up because I did an article on it recently, which included some nice maps. Martha Lauren, also possibly you build a Metrolink line that replaces local service between Manchester and Rochdale, so you can use the existing line for Intercity as that has good geometry as it is. Yeah, broadly this alignment actually does, you'll see, sit around the position of the existing route, and you could just, exactly, if you came up with an alternative solution, you could use the existing route entirely. I'm not sure you would. I think it's still good to have a pair of dedicated suburban tracks for the trouble with Metrolink is it's very slow. I think a dedicated metro is required up to Rochdale, let alone the Metrolink connection. So I think you have three. You have Metrolink to join all the little local places. You have a metro, a dedicated suburban rail network, more like Thameslink, etc., that gives you your kind of urban hubs, and then you have the high speed services that are running through across the Pennines. Let's put our stations back on so we can remind ourselves what's where. So yes, you come up into Bradford and you've got the James Street station position in Bradford, and then you run across into Leeds, and you have let's now go back to Sheffield and just talk about the other side of this triangle, which is the HS2 alignment. So this is not any alignment. This is not any HS2 alignment. This is my alignment that I would choose to select. Let's just bring up the eastern leg again, so you can see what the eastern leg was doing. Actually, I think I have the consultation route as well. Yeah, the consultation route is here, which is the Meadowhall. I think, there's the Meadowhall route as well. So you can see the dashed lines of the Meadowhall route. So I divert from. So if you've got the Meadowhall route and the eastern leg here, you can see where they're going and what they're doing. I divert off that for a new route, including some tunnels. So rather than Leeds being on a spur, that doesn't make any sense to me. I want to come in and create a new, so RIP to the T station, frankly, is create a new parallel station to the existing railway station, either burying it underground, adjacent to the canal, and that'd be very expensive, but doable, I believe, entirely doable. Then I also think that you tunnel leads, so you completely skip what Transpennine have got going on, and indeed stay completely apart from the Transpennine route, other than going past the old Vickers factory here. You run along... Actually, is the Vickers factory here? Or is it here? I can't remember. No, that's Thorpe. Ooh. Remember where the old Vickers factory is, everyone? Yeah, Leeds having a spur is an insult. Again, because it's south-facing. It's like, well, no, Leeds, there's also Britain north of Leeds, and people do make journeys north of Leeds quite regularly. So putting Leeds on the main through route allows... Let's just hide the other nonsense. So our route here, you come through Leeds, tunnel section to get you out into kind of beyond Cross Gates. You have another parkway station in the area next to the A1 and M1 junction. So you end up so you create a kind of east of Leeds Parkway connection there that you could, whether it sits there or whether it's, but I think that could provide you a useful connection to. There's potential opportunity for development. There's a lot of development potential there, so I think that's an opportunity for like a sizable amount of housing and mixed use development there. So that's an opportunity, and then you whiz up, and then at this point, you merge into the East Coast Main Line and turn the high-speed route into something slightly different, in that it will be dedicated to high-speed lines, but it'll be absolutely, the alignment is good enough that you basically have it running parallel to the existing railway. However, whether you widen it to a six-track railway up into York is an interesting question, because that route is really busy. It's very, very congested through into York. And north of York is also hell. So whilst we're following the existing corridor, what you actually do with high-speed services through here, and whether you, in the case of coming north of York, I think it has to be, currently they're 3-tracking that. I think 4-tracking it, or possibly even 5-tracking it would be necessary. Running that further, then basically at that point you can have a pair of slows and a pair of high speeds, or again, with potential 6-tracking if necessary. I don't think it would be. You can run pretty much on the route of the East Coast Main Line. To a point, and then some fun stuff happens. Now, do you want to talk about the fun stuff there, or do you want to talk about the fun stuff happening over on the other side? Should we go back to Manchester? So we're at York on one side. Let's go back to Manchester. So in Manchester, relying on a route coming through Manchester, and that being the main north-south corridor, you then fly along, join up with some lovely, paralleling motorway action for much of the journey, in fact. You start snaking your way northwards. An open question I've got, and I have not decided on, is where the intermediate station in the northwest should be, because I think there should be an intermediate station somewhere in the northwest. Where that exactly sits, I am not sure. So I'm keen for the chat in the high-speed rail discussion action going on in the Discord server, where people think a station would be. I think you could probably only... I think possibly you could get to it, but I think one station, bearing in mind that I'm not of the view that you do skipping stop patterns. I think that you just do everything. You build the timetable on this railway like a metro timetable. So basically, if you get on a train, the chances are, and you go in the right direction, the chances are it'll call it your station type arrangement. People saying Preston, yeah, I think partly influences what you end up doing with the alignment, actually, because if you're going into Preston, that becomes more challenging. If you stay on the outskirts, so yeah, mixed feelings. But you'll notice there's a big old straight line. It's because I'm digging a big old tunnel, mate. Going underneath Shap, you just base tunnel it. You just skip the hell out of that bit of railway. So you're going underneath there. Even if the tunnel is still climbing, because then it pops out Shap Summit, so it's around here, isn't it? And then, actually it's not, it's Shap Summit is about here-ish, isn't it? It's about here. Anyway, pop out, follow the M6 and the railway on your way back towards Carlisle. You have to run through Carlisle, and I suggest that would involve a new pair of tracks. And then that would also involve a lot of shuffling of the existing tracks, but this is kind of necessary at Carlisle. It's a major bottleneck. Northwards, again, you need to, at the moment it's 2-track, it would absolutely have to be 4-track coming out of there, particularly if you look at the Borders Railway as well. From which point you then kind of doing a mixture of like chopping some corners off the West Coast Main Line for a bit, and then your base tunneling BTIC. You're just skipping the big lump, whizzing out at kind of joining in the fun at Carstairs here, and bifurcating to head up to Edinburgh in one direction. So you have a route that broadly follows the existing Mid-Calder line up into Edinburgh, but taking a new route until you get into Edinburgh, at which point it becomes a little more limited. I think there's space for a surface route up to around about Haymarket, at which point you could tunnel. Actually, just the other side of Haymarket, at which point you tunnel into a new set of platforms at Waverley. You can build the tunnels there. It is doable. I think that's probably the only solution, because you can't get anything else through that the narrow corridor by the castle. It's just not possible. What's also good is that you then get a new line between Edinburgh and Glasgow, because if you build a reasonably inoffensive connection, there's actually a big flat curve that seems to work here, but actually you probably end up with a slightly tighter curve here because the speeds wouldn't be quite as high. Connecting up to the Glasgow route, that gives you a relatively direct high-speed route between Edinburgh and Glasgow that you could shuttle, which could be nice. Anyway, and then you run up into Glasgow, and there's some sections that you just parallel the existing route because there's the space to do so with some innovative civil engineering. Other bits, it's big old tunnels. There are decent licks of industrial land that you can use up and make a mess of for your railway, which you would exploit. Given that there aren't many excuses, given that they fairly recently bulldozed large amounts of central Glasgow for the M74, so doing so for a railway would be pretty inoffensive. Now, a challenge happens at Glasgow, which is that there ain't enough space for the right size platforms at Glasgow Central. So how that works, I have to say, is a bit of an open question, and I'm not. I could sit and spend a lot of my own rate working out how you actually square that circle. Edinburgh, as I say, I think the only solution is that you actually bore some tunnels and make the use of the possibly buy and repurpose for additional space and platforms and other stuff. The shopping centre there, kind of maybe take up some of that and bulldoze the bottom floor perhaps to get some of those platforms in, to get 450 metre long or 415 metre long with a bit of passive provision platforms. It is possible to have a station spanning the river. Yeah, I quite like the spanning the river option, and how that ties in with the station building. I think that probably ends up being one of the more realistic options. So I think that is an option. And that's the northern end. So that gives you this enormous long, that is a long bit of railway that you're going there, up to Glasgow and Edinburgh. So let's go back to York, and then I promise we'll go to the beautiful Emerald Isle momentarily. So from York, we're going up, get to Northallerton, and before you reach Northallerton, you're skipping off to the south, following the Yarm route for a bit, and then cutting off it, avoiding it, and going into the centre of Middlesbrough to give a central station that would tie into a necessary Teesside metro system. Tees Valley to start with, but other lines would absolutely add on to it. Tunnel and or surface routes through some of the salt area. This is part industrial, part nature reserve, so there's some sensitivities there to deal with, and some of it might involve tunnelling, some of it not. And then work your way north. Now, there are quite a lot of options along here, and I've worked up a fair few of them. Some of it, again, you're involving former railway routes and what you do there. Other bits, you're squeezing your way through some challenging areas to fit a modern 2-track railway. Others, it's you go for a tunnel. That's a tunnel right there to get under that estate. And again, tying in, the thankful is there's a reasonable number of bits of former railway corridor that you can nab. But absolutely, when you get to Weardale and you're going up to preserved Sunderland, because I think you should. Although again, I'm umming and ahhing as to whether you do that or you don't provide that station and you rely on better, wider connections. But I think given you're at the northern end of the route, I don't see it as being catastrophic to have a stop here. But again, I'm not. It's not a hill I'm going to die on. I think it'd be a good idea to land there, and then you make your way through underneath Gateshead. And basically kind of almost replicate the logic of the metro and actually pop out and have a station that is we're stealing Leeds' T and putting a T station to deal with the challenges you've got in Newcastle. So I think you go for a T station at Newcastle. That's one way to deal with it, and you'll see in a minute that there are other options. So that's the logic there. Right. So that is everything that's kind of HS2, and if you like, HS2 plus, right? But you'll have noticed some other stuff going on. So let's not do that now. Let's go to Ireland, because Ireland deserves some to be heard. And you'll be unsurprised to hear that what I'm proposing in Ireland is a Belfast-Dublin railway. I'm sure you are entirely unsurprised to learn that is what I'm actually proposing. So, what does that look like? Well, you come up. Let's switch the stations off so you can see what's going on a bit more clearly. I don't want any of that on. Let's go here and those two. Yeah. So, this, I presume, is being turned into some sort of horrible shopping area. I presume it looks unbuilt now, but I presume that is taken. So what you have to do is buy that back and flatten whatever cheap thing they're throwing up. Someone, Detour, shout at me. Anyone who's a Belfast resident, anyone who's in Belfast, shout at me for that. But that feels like prime real estate that a railway ought to steal. And then, yeah, you're relying on pretty heavily on tunnels. In the first instance to get out of Belfast, but quite quickly you don't have to. Quite quickly you can start actually building an alignment that is out and about on the surface. I think a good idea is to then build. In fact, I actually might. Oh yeah, I switched them off, didn't I? Is to then build a station at. I think this is Dundalk, isn't it? Here, yeah, is to build a station at Dundalk. Just feels like a good midpoint to allow you to kind of capture the hinterlands at the border and between the two. You then come south, following the motorway for a substantial part of the route, by the way, at this point. South of Dundalk, you join the motorway and then basically follow it for much of its route, which in some instances is a help, and in some instances makes things more complex from a civil engineering perspective, but it just avoids you sterilising too much land. You then come in, there's tunnels, there's not tunnels, then there's big time tunnels again as you arrive into Dublin, and again make use of I would say go for the carriage sheds and attempt to steal that land if you can. Again, you'll have challenges with heritage because there's a lot of heritage around this area, so invariably squeezing, this is very much true for Cardiff and Bristol as well in a minute, squeezing high speed line platforms in that are the sufficient length can be challenging. Let's put it that way. It might be that you go for a shorter train with a higher frequency to reduce the costs of the station construction, or that might be a genuine option. Now, you might then be going, why aren't the station, why, given the previous episode we did on Ireland, why are we not extending the railway across to Limerick and down to Cork? Well, because I think at that point you rely on a mixed traffic. I do think a new railway is necessary, but I think it should be a high-density mixed traffic electrified railway, so it provides you your freight. Whereas what you then do with the high-speed route between Dublin and Belfast is free up the existing network to become a high-density core in and of itself. Whereas I think in terms of the patronage, you can satisfy that with a new route, but mixed traffic new route on the... So it would be a new railway, but not a high-speed railway. So that's not why it's not on the map right now. It's because I think the only bit that you build as proper high-speed is between Belfast and Dublin. Thoughts on that? Welcome, though. Also, yeah, people are shouting about the fixed link. The reason the fixed link isn't on here, again, because it would be a mixed traffic route. But I do think that a fixed link to Ireland is it will be on my... When we go for the next map, which is incorporating all the bits of heavy, mixed traffic Swiss-style railway that need to be built. It'll be a more dense map. It'll take me longer. But necessary lump will be connecting Dublin to North Wales, of course. So, I see the Meadowhall chat is kicking off in a big way on there. There will be an Ireland episode coming up soon, actually. We have someone in the chat who I'm looking forward to putting on, having a chat about this, and maybe we'll have a brief chat about this very proposal I have here. Glad to hear that folk agree on that one. So it's 2057. And I know it's being a flying run. You know what? So what I'm going to do is we're going to come back to the second. I'm going to tease with the other lines momentarily, but what we're going to do is go to my construction views to show you what this looks like in a bit more detail in terms of the alignment. So what you're looking at now is the redder it is, the faster so red is fast, yellows to cools are slower. And what this is showing what the alignment speeds give you, with also in the background the dark grey is the kind of the chosen alignment, if you like. But you can see the different options, not a huge number of options through here, various things that I worked up and deleted and played with, and you can see there are various sort of options and then various things. Not a huge amount there because the work detail on that isn't enormous at this point, to be honest. What you see there is a bit more fun is Liverpool and Manchester. The options, so actually there's not a huge amount of diversity in the connections to Liverpool, but in terms of Manchester, you can see that there are a lot of different options in what those alignments might look like and how they interact. Ditto the routes, the routes across from Sheffield to Manchester, and the routes across from Manchester to Leeds as well, and the options between Bradford and Leeds. There's all these different options here, and the options from through Teesside and how you then connect up to Newcastle and what those options look like. And there's kind of a varying diversity of options in what works best to achieve that and what maximizes the use of existing infrastructure versus alternative options. So just giving you an idea of what those sort of braided routes look like. And yeah, incidentally, there's the Dragon Line, by the way, kind of still sitting there. And so there are other options as well. Let us go back, though, to our final views and talk about what cross-country trains have to do. Right, in fact, you know what? Let's go big face and answer the question. There's so much chat going on here, so I'm going to whiz backwards as best I can. So I'm going to go in reverse order. Hannah Goodliff, as someone in Somerset, I'm curious to see just a glimpse of what changes you make in the south. Or you're going to get it momentarily. Do I have a sense of what my design does to journey times yet? Not yet. That's there are going to be several successive updates of this mini-series, if you like, and I'll talk about things like an estimate of broad costs, just following the HS2 costings and expanding those. I've not talked about frequencies yet. I'm just going to hint that at the end, but I think that'll form part of the next episode. Sequencing of what ought to be delivered when, more about stations and how they tie into suburban networks, and absolutely, yeah, journey times. We'll look at what journey times might look like as well, and speeds. So it is indeed my face. Thanks, Martha. Victoria Almori, why is it extremely difficult to become a rail engineer? Brunel will be squirming in his grave that I cannot find engineering apprenticeships. Because all the companies, since the cancellations of HS2, all the companies have just stopped that, because there are too many people now and not enough roles because of HS2's cancellation. Victoria, I'm so sorry that it's a very difficult time at the moment. Hopefully that is going to reverse in the next few years. It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities out there, companies to join, apprenticeship schemes to get stuck into, but it is a little bit more difficult thanks to current government as well now, sadly, machinations over high speed. And Michael C., I think I asked this before, but with Manchester being a significant hub under this plan, how large do you think that station needs to be? My gut tells me probably about 8 platforms. Yeah, it's going to be a big station. You're talking about a much bigger station than any of the plans I've talked about so far to achieve what it's achieving in terms of throughput. Jamie Potts, what do you think of having a station at Edinburgh Airport, so you can have high-speed services from Glasgow and then close the Glasgow airports? Let's go and have a look, shall we? Let's get small face up. Is that a viable option? It could be, couldn't it? Possibly. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things of like, what's the right solution for Scotland's airport situation? If it's going to be Edinburgh, then that raises the question of, okay, well, how are we connecting? You know, what's that connection look like? How's that going to work? That's an interesting option. Pop it in the list of suggestions. My face. Where's my face? Let's see. Would you build these to European loading gauge or stick with GB1? I'd build it to European loading gauge to enable that to work in the long term, and you'll see why when we talk about connections to HS1 in a minute. I was thinking have the Edinburgh-Glasgow line follow the M8 and then have a Delta junction to go south to England. If HS2 opens with terminal platforms at Manchester and Leeds, do these become the international platforms when long-term through platforms open? Well, yeah, exactly. there's an opportunity to do better things, but yeah, no one's interested in the Midland option at all. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, the Sheffield Victoria, the issue with Sheffield Victoria, right, is I just think it rejects a lot of the quite dense hinterland. Like Rotherham is a major dense area as well, and quite a deprived, relatively speaking, there's a lot of deprivation that side as well. I think my view is that it better serves the whole lot. The alignment could come round and come up through Victoria and then link up. I think it's possibly a more challenging build to achieve that, and I wouldn't want it going anywhere near the existing route because I think the existing railway is prime metro opportunities. So yeah, what about Newcastle to Edinburgh? What about Newcastle to Edinburgh and serving right? So Newcastle to Edinburgh, in and of itself, is a short enough journey that Newcastle to Edinburgh can use the East Coast Main Line and still be pretty competitive and decent. The service is stopping at more, so you maybe more like a 2 hour. Well, basically, there should be improvements to that route anyway. There's a lot of corners you could cut off, and you could probably still hit a 2 hours 40 journey time. Wait, it's not that long, is it? It's much less than that. What is it, an hour and a half? You could still hit the shorter journey times, or the current journey times, while stopping at more stations. So, 2104. Victoria is 2 minutes away on the train from Meadowhall. Surely more thought needs to be given to regional strategy as well, which Victoria would fit much better into. Let's go for there's a whole Sheffield episode coming, maybe 2 or 3 episodes away. There's definitely fun discussion to be had on that. I think, yeah, there's clearly a bit of open discussion. Detour, for your information, your proposed Belfast station is where they're building the new train coach station according to previous chat comments. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, that is good. But the trouble is that then means I'm bulldozing existing railway stuff, so mixed feelings on that. Maybe it could be a tunnel underneath. East Coast Main can be much faster if you cut off the Morpeth curve at even just 100 miles an hour. That's very true, I know, yeah. Sorry, Ina. Forgive me. Right, let's go. There were a lot of reds earlier, so let's go. Good grief, there's so much. Right, lots of people saying Preston. People are saying snaking. So if I go back to construction, people are asking about how much snaking. I'm not sure which route particularly is being referred to, but for the most part, this is 300 kilometers an hour, actually, for the most part, it's 360. Like, these curves are 360. So I've designed much of the network to be a 360 kilometer an hour network with a few exceptions here and there. And that includes, stuff that we're going to look at momentarily. I have designed it to be a broadly 360 kilometer an hour network where it can be, because that minimises your journey times. And the thing about fast is it makes it all cheaper. A fast railway is a cheaper railway. Fewer trains, smaller depots, smaller stations. It's a win. All right, let's go down through here. How long would your longest tunnel be? Don't know. I haven't done full tunnel modelling on this yet. I've broadly chosen alignments, and then where I know roughly where I'm putting tunnels, which is where I then straighten alignments as I need to, and don't mind bulldozing stuff, but I don't know the exact length yet. For how much of the north of Carlisle-Lancaster route would you also reroute the West Coast Main Line to parallel the high-speed lines? So 4-track high-speed line, 2 freight local tracks, not actual HSR. I don't know if I would. I think I'd probably leave the West Coast Main Line as it is, to be honest. Let it keep doing its thing. I would reckon. What about Station Edinburgh Airport? Yep, Jamie, we covered that. Raphael Nicolaus, suggestion for a future rail network, looking at how other places built their city centre rail tunnels from on Hauptbahnhof type station. Yeah. Edinburgh Glasgow speed makes up for longer distance. On the connecting route up, yes. Oh, I see what you mean. Like the fact that it's not a direct straight line. Yeah, and you could choose to put the connecting cord further north, but it just means an additional mileage of railway. And if you've got a railway that's running at 300 kilometres an hour between the two, then actually it's still better than the existing timings. Anything further north, Aberdeen line speed improvements? Yes, but in terms of what you're doing further north, whether you run on beyond, I don't think you do. I think for the most part, we should be building this network to be pretty self-contained and avoid too much on-network running. I think HS2 was starting to have too much on-network running. I think it was making it complex. I think in the interim, while stuff's still being built, it's good to have the mixed fleet. But I do think in the long term that you actually cease that, and you then go for hub and spoke including at the terminations. Right, so... what trains am I expecting? Is this European style or Japanese style service? It's a European style service, yeah. Everything has to change. If we go for a Japanese style system, everything has to change about how we do risk modelling, how we do civil engineering, the whole picture, and that's a ground up change that ain't happening. Let's see, double-ended Glasgow Hauptbahnhof connecting Central and Queen Street. It's a thing I was considering. It's certainly an option I was considering, and whether you could achieve that. Anne Person, shout for a new station east of High Street in Glasgow because it connects to north of Queen Street and we can easily tie it to your Rutherglen approach. Interesting shout. Let's have a quick look. So one of the things I was thinking about is do you reclaim, let's say, former station footprints? But I wasn't so sure. There's a few. So I did have some options coming in round, but or like various sketchy bits, but I've kind of deleted those because they kind of didn't go anywhere. But and pulling this down across the river is certainly an option, isn't it? And quite a nice one. R.I.P. Thornaby Hub, says Bilgegrois. Oh yeah, R.I.P. Because originally I was doing the Thornaby Hub, but I've kind of moved the the Thornaby Hub I have moved. I originally had a hub. In fact, you can see it in my construction views. I did originally have a hub at Thornaby, which I had here, but I don't think I would do that anymore. I do think I would serve Central Middlesbrough, kind of, because otherwise I'm being a bit hypocritical on what I'm serving. Where I think actually you can serve Middlesbrough Central and then have a decent supporting suburban rail network to back it up. The Teesside diversion has changed since the last time I showed it off. Very much, yeah. There we go. Lots of chat. Let's chat. No crew to Dublin. Well, Michael say yes, but not a high speed line. Not East Western Ireland. No. Let's see. Let's go. It's a new station. Oh, thanks everyone. I should probably know that, shouldn't I? Belfast Grand Central. That's right, I did know that. Belfast Grand Central Station. I did actually know that. Thank you. Everyone's putting up a new station. Good. Partly good, partly bad. New station further from the centre. Grand Central Station. Thanks, everyone. Right, so lots of good chat there. Oh, God. Everyone's saying put your screen on. Okay, yeah, I was doing that, wasn't I? Sorry, everyone. Yes. What was I saying? I was saying Glasgow there. I was saying the Thornaby Hub was down here. It's because I'm basically looking at the chat while. Yeah, thanks everyone. Welcome to Rail Natter when I do big face too much and people have to deal with my face for too long. Yeah, no, I reckon you could serve the centre better and connect it with the suburban rail network and do a better job on that. More improvements, fewer sprinters. Agreed. There, problem solved. So anyone who's joining for the first time, you get to experience why your audio version is so weird. It's because I'm recording this live and we're going through all the fun live. Right, so we have got about 10 minutes to talk about the rest of the network because there's other stuff going on here that's not. So that, apart from Ireland, that was basically HS2++. So now there's other stuff that isn't HS2++. And we're first of all going to talk about what you do with cross-country services. And what you do with cross-country services is build a new railway. So lots of complaints about Curzon Street not being a through station. I don't think that's such a problem. The more I think about it operationally, it's not such a problem, I don't think, because people going into Birmingham don't need... So people from Birmingham, it's not such a pain to come out and round. From people going from the northeast or the northwest wanting to get further south in Birmingham don't need to go into Birmingham. So I don't necessarily think it's a disaster to retain Birmingham interchange, which then means you run service. You then basically get a complete high-speed line. Again, I think you could have a kind of a Cheltenham Gloucester type station between them actually there on this route. So you go from Birmingham interchange, you come down, you cut your way through, make everyone very unhappy on your way south here, broadly following the existing railway actually, and motorway network. If you zoom in, you can see we're cutting in and out of the M5 here. Run down, you end up with another triangle junction because we need to get to Cardiff. It's critical to connect Cardiff into this. And also, the Severn Tunnel is knackered, and it needs basically a complete reconstruction. And to achieve that, first thing you need to do is build a new tunnel. So there needs to be a new tunnel. What you do is build this tunnel so staging wise, you'd build this tunnel to just replace the Severn tunnel temporarily. So you'd end up building, and it might, to be fair, slightly influence what my alignments are, so that you can actually connect the existing Great Western into the new tunnel once it's built, then run everything through the new tunnel, rebore or whatever you do to the former tunnel to heavily reconstruct it, or whatever you need to do to deal with the mess inside it, because it's basically just it's a large water feature. Deal with that, and then you can split and segregate. But I would say that's what you do with a new tunnel. So the new tunnel would then the former tunnel would then be you'd use for metro services and freight. You run through Swansea, you run the railway. Bypass Swansea, sorry everyone, and then you come into Cardiff and work out how on earth you fit fairly straight 400 metre long platforms in and around Cardiff Central, which is very difficult. I would suggest that you end up doing it across the river and building a bit of an extended station there, and perhaps nabbing some of the industrial land in this area to achieve that. And deal with the approaches on that side of Cardiff, because it's tricky, folks. Actually, Cardiff is a squeeze. That was I was saying Newport, not Swansea. Sorry. I had Swansea on the brain because I was half expecting the questions about what about Swansea, and again, it's because yes, I think you upgrade the existing route to Swansea to be more like a Swiss high density situation. Luke is saying there's no way you get an underground station there. Yeah, it's very challenging to squeeze it in there. I've tried a lot of different options and they're all a mess, to be honest. Let's go into Cardiff. Oh, have I deleted them? Oh, I must have deleted them all. That was mean of me. But yeah, I must have got rid of them all. That's a bit weird. There were a lot of options and none of them are very good. So it's definitely tricky. It's definitely tricky to achieve that. How you get into Bristol is also a bit of a pain. So I would say you coming along the motorway and dig some tunnels and then join the existing corridor kind of through into Bristol. I then think Bristol's maybe a bit easier than Cardiff, because you possibly steal some existing industrial land and build across the canal in that area and actually build the station there and have it kind of tee onto the existing. That's possibly an option. So again, these require substantial additional work. People are now going, wait, what's going on here? What's this gap here? This is one of the examples where I'd say, well, a couple of things. So firstly, a lot of people a lot of the traffic, if not all, the significant majority of the traffic going to the West Country goes via Bristol. When we build the next line we're about to talk about, that doesn't need to happen anymore. So you can get away, capacity-wise, you can get away with the Bristol to Exeter connection and being an upgrade of the existing railway, the existing what is it, the Devon and Somerset. It's the Brunel extensions to the Great Western. You get away with kind of an online upgrade on there. It's messier as you get further south, but actually the route's pretty good for a decent upgrade. Kind of, what is that, north of Bridgewater? Yeah. So I'd say you can achieve quite a lot on the existing railway there. Now, so that's done. The last bit is, let's start down in. You know what? Let's go to London. Let's talk about London and what's happening in and around Euston and St Pancras. So, current high speed station is at St Pancras here. Euston is going to need to be a terminus station. It's going to need to be large. But my original plan of having a big Hauptbahnhof type thing down here, I think you can achieve some connection and additional platform capacity by doing it underneath Euston Road, and by pissing everyone off by closing Euston Road and burying a box there and then expanding that box. So burying a box at Euston Road and then expanding the box to put platforms in. I think you could achieve. You could achieve this. How does the Bristol South West work with a T station in Bristol? As stuff could come off at the junction and run through the existing station, or you change Knucker there. What about the Circle line? So let's just call it. There's quite a lot of spaghetti to work your way through here, and this is by no means a perfect solution. But it was kind of me spitballing what I think could be a solution the other thing you'd have to deal with is the mess of reconstructing. I don't think you could achieve. I think you'd have fun achieving a connection into the existing tunnels without basically having to dig several large holes underground, including probably this park. You'd have to dig a hole and work your way down to create tunnel connections and a big crossover box. It's messy as hell. But I think, you want to build a new Euston station on the Met anyway. Exactly, Martha Lawrence. I think this is what you do. I think this is what it ends up. And also you have your nice connecting lines coming through from, that's right, a straight line-ish down to Plymouth. Now, this line, why is this a good idea? Well, it's a good idea for a lot of reasons. One of them, there is no capacity on the route out to let's just quick shove up my station names. Yeah, so firstly, this means you're starting to get, you've got of the four, Lewisham isn't on, there's Lewisham. Lewisham isn't on it doesn't have a high-speed hub station, but Old Oak Common, Stratford, and Clapham Junction, which are the mayor's four super hubs, do all now have a high-speed station going in a direction, which I think is advantageous to London's plan. And then you get your massive capacity increase in terms of speeds out to Woking, Basingstoke, Southampton, as currently as a fast route that is at capacity, freeing up lots of capacity for freight, by the way, out of Southampton. So that's a very good thing for freight capacity out of Southampton. But also there is, given all the money that's being discussed getting spent on the flipping Stonehenge tunnel, well, no, forget that, and get people off the 303 and onto this route. So you continue from Southampton through Bournemouth, a built-up area, by the way. We'll put built-up areas back on again. You then connect. At this point, there is no good route from Bournemouth to Exeter on rail. It's a mess. It's a horrible shambles. Almost, if you like, a Riviera high speed route that then goes straight to Exeter. Deals with the fun at Exeter, which, don't get me wrong, is spicy, but I think doable. I think it's doable to get a segregated route through Exeter. And then you might say, well, why are you then building high speed to Plymouth? Why are you not, using why is that not a mixed Swiss route? Well, it's because I think you still want to reinstate services on the northern route, if you like, and use that as a diversion route. But I think you then mix services of having suburban services using the existing coastal main line, and possibly freight and other services using the kind of the back road, if you like, round the back of Dartmoor. But I think that then justifies a segregated high speed corridor that would kind of go south of Dartmoor and follow, for the most part, you're following motorway, you're following the A30, etc., to get down to Plymouth. But I think that from Plymouth onwards, you can do what you like. But I think that high speed core takes a lot of the Devon traffic direct to London. Also, it means that when you're coming from up here, you change in London to get down there. So if you're cross-countrying to Exeter, say, or Plymouth, actually you go via London. And you don't have a direct train, but you change, and it's quick and easy because there's trains every 10 minutes, and that's fine. That's the map, folks. I'm conscious of time, and I don't want to. I've got to set up a stream momentarily. But I vigorously believe that this is the right long-term solution for a high-speed network. I don't think you need any more than that. But I think it is the right long-term solution. Let's go big face again and answer questions momentarily. I think that is the right long-term solution for a high-speed network. What other chat have we got? Lots of people asking about how that would work with subsurface underground lines. You just build around them; it's achievable, and then build platforms for them and all sorts of stuff. It doesn't have to be cut and cover, but it's useful to have a surface connection, even if you then expand outwards and have tunnel boring machines, etc., around it. What else? No terminal platforms at Euston. No, I do think we still have terminal platforms at Euston because most trains will be terminating at Euston, not running through. But you get the connection. You get services that connect for all sorts of reasons. Integrated London Station, space between St Pancras and Euston. That's kind of what's happening, to be honest. Let's see, what else have we got? Trainworms is a fan of that. Let's go. Can you route that line through Gatwick Airport, or is that too far out of the way? I don't think Gatwick Airport so my logic is that you'd eventually consolidate enough air traffic that you'd only have one station, one airport, and it would be at Heathrow. So kind of moot at that point. And also, again, they're suburban connected, so that's kind of fine. Personally, I tried to serve both Southampton and Portsmouth with designing this line, but found it very difficult to get a suitable line. Yeah, hub station and then a metro service for the South Hampshire conurbation. Trainworm was saying, I think your new line goes past my home. Let's go. Yeah, let's do this thing. Richard Gadsden. That's very close to the alignment of the 1930s Dawlish avoiding line. Yes, it is. Is the engineer playing this evening? Yes. Any speed bumps in the routes? None that I can think of. A few actually. Yeah, I think we showed them when we looked at the construction. I have to comment. This leaves Somerset painfully bare in terms of high speed, but I get it. We're all just farmers. Now, Hannah, it's just that you'd it would mean that you'd head either to Bristol, upward to Bristol, or down to Devon. As part Devonian, I'm chuckling under my breath at the fact that you all have to travel to Devon to get the train. Katie Fenn is saying, do you envision services running from Meadowhall to Piccadilly and on to Scotland? Absolutely, yes. What about a map of where trains will go, i.e. services? Oh, I was going to show you that, wasn't I? Let's do that for a moment. Very, very briefly. God, I'm running out of time before the stream. The stream might be a little bit late for those of you who are watching. Let's get frequencies up and show you that. So I'm not going to go into much detail because I'm going to do it in an episode, but there is a service pattern, and it's here, and you can pause the video to go back and pause it and look at these. These should all make sense, and also trains per hour as well on the service patterns and what those look like, and what goes where. It's by no means perfect. I need to stress test it and I have a good go at it, but this is a bit of a first bash on what goes where and what the service patterns actually look like in terms of frequencies and what level of frequency you end up with, where the peak frequencies are, which incidentally are in and around the Birmingham area. So this is where you probably end up with, and I think the plans are actually currently for a 4-track high-speed line either side of Delta Junction. So that kind of makes some good sense. Manchester's obviously very busy, and then what you do with the lines northwards. So that's that. Let's go back to Big Face again. Cheeky. So there we go. Why am I not going with the Castleford Relief Tunnel in Manchester? There's other plans for Manchester, other things going on in Manchester that aren't high speed. Remember, this is just the high speed stuff. I want all that done by 2040, but it's already 21. I know, right? No, that's not all happening by 2040. It's not all happening by 2040. In terms of sequencing, we'll talk about how that ends up looking, but HS2 is critical to achieve the doubling, but you can achieve the rest on network. But in terms of long distance, obliterating domestic flights and achieving even bigger capacity gains and driving the growth in rail mode share, you need more. Let's see. People don't care about connecting services if the services are frequent enough. Just look at London. People don't hesitate to change if it means they have people actively seek to change to choose to avoid, for example, the Central Line. It's just a thing. What else? Victoria is asking of all of the designs at all stations are terrible. The people who built the Shinkansen will be laughing at stations being underground. Which stations, Victoria? I appreciate your candidness. Severn Railway Bridge. Replace the Severn Tunnel with a Severn Railway Bridge. I mean, it's a potential option. Yeah, might be a lot cheaper. Would the upgrade from Bristol to Exeter also involve an upgrade to EU loading gauge? Replace the Severn Tunnel with a Severn Railway Bridge. There's a lot of Severn Railway Bridge left. I mean, it is a thing. It's an option. Yeah, that's just probably a better option, isn't it? What are plans for South Hampshire to Bristol and South Wales? Another mixed traffic upgrade. Yeah, there's more on that to be said. Right, so let's quickly miniaturize my face. Very quick comparison is that France has 2,800 kilometers of high-speed rail, which gives it about 5 meters per kilometer squared. Spain has about as nearly 4,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, and that means it has about as nearly 8 meters per kilometer squared. And the UK and Ireland, that's 2 countries, by the way, I'm just going to very explicitly say that is 2 countries, would have, under these plans, 2,100 kilometers of high-speed railway, which would put them, in terms of the density, it would be about 6 to 7 meters per kilometer squared, which is kind of more on the Spain than the France side, but it's kind of in that ballpark. It's about the right amount of high-speed line for the size of country. So, Valkyrie VP, having just spent a week driving engineering trains inside the Severn Tunnel, I'm all for a bridge. Yes. I dare say you're inside the train and still having to wear your Pack-a-Mac to keep your hair dry, right? Ian is rightly saying that's 4 to 5 countries, actually. As a Scot, yes, you're absolutely right, of course. Very, very, very true. Yes, it's Ireland and then the various countries that form the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Yes. Right. Okay. Let's draw this thing to a close. So that's kind of that. There's many more episodes to come out of this. Do chuck all of your thoughts into the Discord server and feel free to tag me in. I don't mind you tagging me in because I'll make the list of all the suggestions. So all the suggestions that you've seen popping up in here, do chuck them over onto the Discord server. Keen to scoot them up. And keen for all the comments. Keen to pick those up and see what you think could change. Patreon supporters, you will get a download so you can pull that in as a KML file and open it in Google Maps or Google Earth or wherever you want to. But I must say thank you very much for everyone for who's listened to this. I don't know how this works in audio only form. Thank you so much. For those wanting to support this sort of thing and more of this chaos, thank you so much. Patreon.com/Gareth Dennis. Thanks to those who do already support as well. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for loose change and abuse. And GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the Discord server where all of your suggestions are highly, highly desirable. Ping, all sorts of pings are do ping me on Patreon chat if you want to do it through Patreon online as well. Is fine. Yes. So that was the map. You can have a tour around. Thank you to Bentley, by the way. They don't sponsor me, but this is an unpaid for podcast, but Bentley have given me a license for of MicroStation to allow me to do some of this fun. So it's worth me saying thanks, Bentley. It's actually great that you've done that because it allows this fun to happen. In a minute, good grief, there will be the next episode of the Archipelago series. We're going back to Amphitrus and hopefully all the technology works. So I might be a little bit late for that. So apologies if I am. But that is going to be fun. All sorts of chaos going on in that. Please do come and join. And next week, as a harking back to the questions that were coming at the start, yes, we're going to be going through the consultation plans for West Yorkshire Mass Transit. Let's see what they have to do to say for phase 1 of that. So that should be good fun. So we're going to have a look through in some detail. So I'm keen to understand what that whether those plans are good, what the compromises are, how they might fit into the bigger picture. So that should be good fun. Everyone, thanks so much for joining that one. That was good fun. Enjoyed that. That was a lot of concurrent viewers, but an absolute pleasure. There are many more episodes. Lots of challenges, loads of good challenges. I'm looking forward to those. Victoria, please list off your challenges to the stations. But we can't build stations like they do in Japan because there's a fundamental difference in the design of trains. The fundamental design of trains and infrastructure in Japan versus Europe and well, basically Europe and other, basically the rest of the world and how they build high-speed rail. It'd be interesting to pick. China builds has built a European style high-speed network rather than Japanese style. Lots of interesting things to pick through there. Post your critiques on your croutons. Post your croutons and your crustaceans on the Discord server. Keen for that. Anyway, crashworthiness is the big factor. There isn't any on the Japanese Shinkansen. Well, there isn't if a train falls off, it would turn into it would just make a noise. No, but crashworthiness is at a systemic level on the system, but we just have a totally different approach to risk management in Europe, and that's fine. It just means that our infrastructure looks different. Anyway, 21:31. I'm late for another stream that I was supposed to be doing, and I was going to give myself 15 minutes to breathe and have a drink, and that's not going to happen. So let's. I'm going to hop over and do that in a sec. If anyone wants to hop over to that stream and say he'll be just a minute, then please do. There will be future episodes on what the step down from high-speed network, what the mixed traffic but potentially new lines network ought to look like for the UK. We'll get there. Anyway, we do need to do an episode on the differences between the Japanese and the rest of the world. We're going to have Felix Schmidt on to talk about that. I want Felix on to explain it because I think he's good fun and a friend. So that's enough from me. Everyone, Everyone thinks I should take a 10-minute break. Yeah, I am going to do that. I'm going to push the stream back to quarter 2, as an FYI. So, I'm going to wave vigorously. Everyone, thanks so much for that. That was good fun, wasn't it? Should we do more of those? Yes. Cheerio! Cheerio!